Welcome back to the Tongue of the Trees. I'm Elizabeth Ashley, the Secret Healer, and today we're talking about what is marjoram essential oil good for. And I kind of whizzed through, didn't I, the physical medicine, because it was really simple stuff. But it's the emotional stuff that makes marjoram really something quite spectacular. And, you know, that rushing thing is almost part of the medicine because it's hushed. It's secret, it's private, marjoram. It's stuff that happens that you don't want anybody to know about, whether that's the source of your obsessions, or things that you've had done to you, or things that have upset you so much you don't want to talk. All of that is marjoram stuff. So let's quickly have a look. It says, funnily enough, the key word, if you look at the card, is admission. Things you don't want to admit. It's I understand sadness and defeat. When everything else feels easier to someone else, I'll wrap a warm blanket round you and warm you from the chill of pouring rain. I'll hold you tight till the tears stop and you finally catch your breath. And I'll remind you of how much you're capable of, and together we can begin to plan. Let's get you to the other side of this. Never mind everybody else. Shush your tears, child. Calm down and breathe. Let's get you strong again. So it's simple message, but it's deep, isn't it? It's the stuff where you're shaking, you know. So we talked very briefly about stress-related asthma. But if we go deeper, this is an oil for survivors of abuse, children who have been neglected, people who have seen horrors, you know. And, you know, it's called the joy of the mountains because it grows all over the mountains in Greece. And it's excellent for somebody who has had their joy shattered. You know, those situations where there's nothing left. So it's lovely for grief, for stuck emotions that just won't move on. So PTSD flashbacks, I would go helichrysum, but helichrysum's quite a grown-up oil. And for children where there are real deep-seated issues, then marjoram would be just as good. And likewise, things like bulimia or anorexia, where the emotion is having a real physical thing playing out, and it's obsession, you know, always obsession. And it's a tonic for both the liver and the spleen. And it's funny, I've been talking about the liver a lot today. If you're interested in learning more about the liver, I would suggest you go and have a look at the Mandarin and Laurel videos that I've done. But the liver is ruled by Jupiter, and they are both related to anger. You know, in Chinese medicine, the liver is anger. Problems with authority, problems with being bullied, with being the oppressed, to being the victim to the aggressor, and the anger that results from that. But it's tonic for the liver and the spleen. And the spleen, in the same way that liver is anger, the spleen is worry. So we can see how this little child, I always say little girl, it feels like a little girl to me, but of course it could be little boy in the same way. But we can see how this child is in the corner and there's this continual fear. There's a song that Suzanne Vega, I don't know whether she wrote it, but she sang it, called Luca, My Name is Luca. And if you really want to grasp what marjoram medicine feels like, it's worth listening to Luca, just to remind of how it feels to be in not admitting, to be constantly in fear, to be negotiating terms all of the time. How can I do this so I avoid that? All of that falls under marjoram medicine. And of course we can see how hyperventilation can turn into asthma. Likewise, we don't sleep very well. We get knots in our stomach. Also, although it wouldn't necessarily be one of my go-to oils for period problems, those kind of, you're not likely to have a girl who has been sexually abused who has no period pain, you know, or you see these rape victims who develop chronic pelvic pain syndrome. That kind of relationship is very much marjoram. And even if somebody is a grown woman, grown man, grown woman, if it's got a childhood component, then it would definitely fall under marjoram. So if we think about the mental side of things, it reduces that obsessive thinking. So on the easiest possible level, we think about how it works in insomnia. It stops your mind going over and over things, and you can get quiet at last, and it settles the circadian rhythms down. But you know, we've all had times, I'm sure, that we hopefully you've been lucky enough that you can say no to this, but where we have really wanted something from somebody and they don't feel they're capable to give it, and we're going over why, what is it about me, you know, the unrequited love is painful, and that obsessive thinking of going round and round and round and round, where it borders on stalker mentality, turns it off. And it's interesting, if you look at the herbal medicine, the medieval herbal medicine, and you look to culpepper says it's warming to diseases of the head, to the stomach and the sinews. So we talked about that on a physical level, didn't we? We talked about how it's migraines. We talked about how it's colds in the head. We talked about how it's digestive and it's warming to the muscles. But also think about how it's warming to the stress, feeling cold in your head, feeling detached, feeling isolated, feeling traumatic, bringing that circulation and warmth back so we start to feel more in our bodies again, because that's another part of marjoram, where you feel out of your body, disembodied. So the spiritual nature of marjoram is the weirdest and the most telling, really. So it has two magical rulerships. So it's affiliated to the god of death, Osiris, in Egyptian medicine, but also it has another Egyptian ruler, and that is Sobek, the crocodile god. So we'll talk about Sobek first. This crocodile god, he was the god of the vulnerable. You see how that is immediately plays out. You can see the young child. But Osiris, god of the dead, Osiris is the sun. Well, Ra was the sun god, but Osiris was in charge of the day and the night. Followed the sun around the planet, and then at night, the pharaoh was expected to take partnership with Osiris to ensure that the sun rose the next day. So we have this circadian rhythm going on, but we also have this plunging down into the underworld, depths of our psychology on a regular basis. So keep going back to that place, going back to that place. And it's involuntary, isn't it? So we might say that it is involuntary in flashbacks, in insomnia, where we have no control over it, you know. So by harnessing the power of Osiris, we take control back of our sleep, of our memories, of our traumas. So it's interesting seeing it play out through that. So that's a fascinating oil, and I hope that it's one that you come to use. As I say, it's not one that I would say, oh, I absolutely love marjoram. It is one that I would never be without. You know, she and I, not necessarily friends. You know, I wouldn't pick her up and say, oh, I love the fragrance. I do like her in cooking, in fairness, but I do think that she is a remarkably strong and helpful healer, especially for insomnia. So I am going to show you the slides, and then I'm going to show you the spread, so you can have a look at how the Tongue of the Trees cards play out and how you can use them in other ways. And I'll see you back here in a moment, and we will talk about the safety, and then after that we will go to Hungary, and Gegle will tell us how he goes about blending lovely marjoram oil. I'm going to run through a quick layout for you to show you the different cards. Now, one of the things that we're not going to tell you in this video, in these videos, is the poem that goes with the cards. But for this layout, we will read them to you just so that you get a chance to sort of feel how the different poems look. So I thought I'd show you the cards. As you can see, lovely little box. I'll show you the other side. Boring stuff, except for cool stuff what I read. Okay, so if we open it up, we can see that the cards just have one logo on, and that is because these originally were Gegle's cards. He's been selling these for a long time in Hungary. Mostly they've been bought by kinesiologists, interestingly enough. They've been doing the energy work with them. They haven't got any aromatherapy background, but they've been able to tap into the energetics of the oils to be able to move emotional blockages. So let's show you. So these come out nice and easy because we've got beautiful little ribbons. And let's get rid of that. So if I said to the cards, what energy do I need? What oils will help me do the best job with these videos? Let's have a... Now my friend Belinda used these the other day, and she does have a habit of shuffling them the wrong way. So we'll have to hope that they're all the way right up. I'm not doing a good job of keeping them that way. So let's have a look. What do I need to do a great job? So I think, it's up to you how you do it, but I think cut it 3 ways, cut it back. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So first 3 cards off the top. Cedarwood Virginian. I'll tell you why I'm laughing at that in a minute. Heart Rose and Lavender. That's a beautiful blend, isn't it? Reason why I was laughing about a Cedarwood Virginian is when Gegle and I came to do the notes of all the different cards, we both went, oh, we've done these cards for Cedarwood Virginian and I don't really know how to explain them differently. And because I was doing lots of editing work, I went, oh, just leave it. So yesterday I did a meditation with Cedarwood Virginian and got the most beautiful work out of it. So you must tap into that tomorrow, have a listen to that video and see it was really different stuff that came out. So let's have a look. So if we go to the book, we can see that there's a brown streak on Cedarwood, and that tells us it's the woods. So we find the woods. Slowly but surely we find the woods. At the back. Okay, so I'm going to use the other cards just to cover up the other pages, because you know what, sooner or later you're gonna have to pay me for something. So Cedarwood Virginian, actually I'll show you this, but I'll read it to you because I'm hoping that it doesn't turn back to front on you, but it may well do. So Cedarwood Virginian says, hold strong. Don't be swayed by the winds of change around you. Stand tall. Resist the temptation to listen as the naysayers surround you. Keep focused on the job you have in hand. Remain strategic. Don't veer from tactics you've planned. Listen intently to information on the breeze. Remain determined. Your courage is what makes me pleased. Hold strong. Don't be swayed by the winds of change around you. Stand tall. Resist the temptation to listen as the naysayers surround you. Keep focused on the job you have in hand. Remain strategic. Don't veer from tactics you've planned. Listen intently to information on the breeze. Remain determined. Your courage is what makes me pleased. And I'd forgotten, I stopped halfway through because I'd forgotten this is the only one that went like around. It kept repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating. And that taps in beautifully to the determination, doesn't it? I'm keeping on reminding you. I'm keeping on reminding you. I'm keeping on reminding you. So, and actually, definitely watch the video on Cedarwood, Virginia, because you'll see just how spooky that is when you see the meditation work I did. Now, you'll also see on here at the bottom of the page, there's the energetics. Now, we're not going to talk about these energetics at all in the video. You might want to go and buy our knowledge base. Now, the knowledge base is completely based on this, and it is a set of lessons on each of the aspects. So, middle to base, you're going to hear about that today when Gergely does his blending. So, that's there. It also vibrates on the throat chakra. So, what does that mean? Within the knowledge base, there is a complete set of information about the different chakras. We do as a lecture on each different chakra, how it affects on the emotional body, how it affects the physical body, how it affects the mental and spiritual bodies, and how that's working. So when we're looking at the knowledge base, this information here describes how the energies move through the system. What energy shift has taken place that we are getting these different physical problems and mental issues. So we can see that Cedarwood, Virginian operates on the water element and the earth element. And again, in the knowledge base, there's a complete section about, we talk about the about half an hour about the water element, then again about half an hour for the earth element, metal, fire, and whatever the other one is, gone out of my head. And then here we can see Sagittarius. Now, so that tells us that what planetary rulership it comes under. This is medical astrology, and this is actually how I see the different energetics playing out. Some people see it through the Ayurvedic, some people see it through Chinese medicine. This is always the lens I see it through. And usually we'll talk about how it's ruled by the moon or the sun or Saturn and the different trends that we see out. And when we look at an archetype like that, it's like Jade Shoots always says, it's like a metaphor, and that's a great analogy of how you can see the thread playing out right across the medicine. And so you can see that Cedarwood Virginian is Sagittarius. So in the knowledge base, we talk about the different signs and planets and also the different houses. If I remember right, Angelica, for example, falls under the Pisces Aries cusp. So that's really quite a difficult one to understand. There's a whole lesson about the Pisces Aries cusp. And then again, Chinese medicine, it nourishes yin. What does that mean? What does it mean? It calms Shen. Shen is an interesting phenomenon all in its own right. It's the consciousness, our mental faculties, our imagination, our emotions, God with a small g, God with a big G. All of those aspects is a complete lesson about Shen and how the essential oils can affect it and change that to move the energy. And then we can see it increases Pitta, reduces Vata, balances Kapha. So it's interesting, actually. I do know at the moment all of my oils tend to come out with earth energy. It's quite interesting hearing me do the earth energy lecture because it's entirely about the challenges I am facing at the moment. But if you are somebody who sells essential oils and you're looking for a way in all of the time, right? You're talking to the person at the school gate, for example, and you can see, you know, she seems a healthy girl, to be honest. She's loving her kids, she seems happy. Imagine somebody who's got a really sing-song voice all the time. Oh, my darling, how did you get on today? Was it lovely? I know. And then child walks off. How are you? To everybody. If that sing-song voice never quite relents, then you can imagine that there's an earth energy imbalance. So any oils that fall under earth energy are good ones to sell. So yeah, if you are interested in learning more about that, ways in, just kind of being able to see, talking to somebody, what might be clues of what's going on of that energetic shift, then head over the knowledge base to have a look at that. So what was our next card? It was Rose, wasn't it? Queen of Roses, as you know. I do love my roses. Let's have a look. So the flowers, I think, are at the front of the book, if I remember rightly. Beautiful pink. Oh, they're both flowers, aren't they? So rose, rose, rose. Damask rose. I was thinking we'd miss Rose out, but it's not under Duff for Rose. It's under, sorry, it's not Rough for Rose. It's Duff for Damask rose. I remember writing this one, actually. This is quite sad. So it says, standing by your graveside or sobbing into your pillow, I know your pain. On the days when you feel lonely, worried or sad, I know your pain. Through the nights where sleep seems far away and you feel like you might break, amidst the anger, the confusion and desolation, I feel your pain. For I was there, remember, when you smelled the roses of their love as your fingertips stroked my petals and tried to avoid the prick of thorn. I felt your hopes, your fears, your joy of deep connection. I ensnared it in my scent to help conjure that affection. In my fragrance, remember hope. Let my aroma you complete. May scent of celebration heal you, calm you, and help you sleep. For through me you are never alone, always loved, and open to give and receive more. Smell me, open up, and feel safe to feel love once more. Now I anticipate that these will be different for everybody, but that's entirely my dad talking to me. I feel quite choked up reading that, actually. When he died, he gave me a rose bush. My cousin works for a rose bush company, David Austin Roses. I'm sure you've heard of them. He's quite a senior manager there, and Dad arranged for a rose called Noble Anthony to be given to me and my sisters at the funeral. So I go and sit and talk to the rose bush. That's a great reminder that my dad's with me today. So that actually, Dad, that really helps. Thank you. So let's have a look at the energetics. We can see middle heart chakra, obviously. Water. Now, again, as I say, in the knowledge base, there is a much bigger lecture on water, but the energy of water is how it can flow around any obstacle and find a way to fill the space. So that's great. That's lovely. And Venus is obviously the planet of love, but there's lots more to do with beauty and and money. Actually, there's an interesting lecture on Venus. I like talking about Venus. Balance is Vata, Pitta and Kapha. If you don't know, Vata is very drying, Pitta is hot and fiery and moist, and Kapha is sluggish. So it brings it all into alignment. But in the knowledge base, as I say, different lectures on each of those. So it nourishes the blood. Well, I've got funny blood, actually, so that's useful to know, Dad. Thank you. Yin and essence. So yin is the feminine aspect. It's very gentle and passive and receptive, and it harmonizes the heart and Shen. We just talked about Shen. So we're going to put all these in a blend in a minute. And so last but not least, the cards have told me that I should go for lavender, which I guess is probably just over the page. Still in the pinks, as you can see. Oh, I remember this one too. Cover them up, cover them up. Can you see? There we go. Lavender's blue, dilly dilly, lavender's green. When you breathe me, dilly dilly, softly you dream. Anger and grief, dilly dilly, softly drift by. Worries and hurts, dilly dilly, kiss them goodbye. When you feel tense, dilly dilly, look for the bees. See how they buzz, dilly dilly, resting with ease. Learn from their hum, dilly dilly, for they all know. Learning to rest, dilly dilly, helps you to grow. Breathe in the scent, dilly dilly, lavender's light. Calm your stressed mind, honey, honey, surrender the fight. Release cares and worries, dilly dilly, I help you to see. Life is so good, dilly dilly, just let it be. Okay, I'm going to let them flow, not force them. This helps, this really helps, you know. I've got to tell you, when I was helping Gergley do this, he was sending me his notes, and every time they came across it, I was like, oh my goodness, I've got to do the cards. These are really hard. Didn't like my poems at all. Really found them difficult to do, and really I just wanted to be writing my Melissa book, which I kind of still do, but I'm feeling a bit happier now. I've got the cards in my hands and I can see them because they really help. Honestly, they really help. So, and of course I might be biased because it's my words talking back to me, but hearing the plant and seeing it written down, it's very helpful. So, actually I've probably skipped the most valuable part of the process for speed. But when you turn out your cards, if you have got the oils, I would sit and breathe the oil as you read the poem. And that's very difficult to do on this camera like this, but because then you will really hear, you'll have that connection with the plant. It will open it up to you. So top to middle note, as I say, Gergley's going to talk to us about the blending. Water, we've just talked about how that finds ways, effortlessly finds gaps to do things, doesn't force it, just gets around any obstacle. Heart chakra again. Mercury, communication, data, information. Yeah, that's very mercurial medicine. We'll talk about that. I know there's a very interesting lecture about Mercury. I originally wrote the Mercury ropes for the pain practitioner program. And so these are quite detailed lectures, about half an hour long, the medical astrology ones, because of course that's my passion. Neutral to cool is the action. Yeah, cooling like the roses. Activates chi. Now again, we'll talk about chi in the knowledge base, but basically it's the life force. And you know how we said we talked about Shen? Well, if Shen doesn't have adequate chi forcing it through, then it becomes disrupted. And I always think about it feeling like you're treading water. So the activation of chi calms Shen or nourishes Shen or raises Shen, depending on which essential oil it is. It aggravates Vata. So yes, this is one of my favourite nags. So the world tells you to put lavender essential oil into every massage oil, into your moisturiser, into your bath. So it aggravates Vata. People, it will dry you out. That is how you get dry skin. Aggravates Vata, makes you a bit vapid, a bit dreamy. So all of the time you're like, you know, like the dreamers that wander around on a cloud. If you're not careful, too much lavender makes you that. Pacifies kapha, so it stops you feeling sluggish, stops you feeling heavy. It's not really directly indicated for constipation, but that shift of energy through kapha would release not only constipation, but congestion in the sinuses. And pacifies pitta. Well, pitta is hot, so it's calming. It reduces inflammation. Anything that's red, hot, angry, it'll calm it down. So there we go. So first, I've got my smelly stick. And really, this is only because then I can stick it down my top and you won't be able to see it. of it. We could use aroma pendants, we could use massage oil, sniffy sticks, whatever. This is just what works for me, and that's the most important thing, that it's the thing that works for you. So cedarwood Virginian is a fast oil, if I remember rightly, so this is quite a thin distillation. Ooh. And then we'll mop up everything off the table. Dip it up, wipe it up. Oh, it's so beautiful, it's smoky. It's beautiful, and I can tell you the lecture is about tapping into your ancestral line, and given that my ancestral line is full of wizards and witches, that's very helpful. Lots of plant healers coming to my aid. So a bit of lavender. Warm the bottle. You'll notice I cover the thing. It's not because I'm covering the labels, although it's because I can't be bothered going, don't ask me which oils I use, but it's more because it's very cold in this shed, so things get stiff, especially myrrh. Goodness me, when we come to do the myrrh video, I have to warm it up 3 weeks before. And then beautiful, beautiful rose. Look at the colour of that, beautiful. It's my favourite bit, you know, was it waiting for it to come out, just seeing the colour. Have I got the nerve to let it drop? I have. Go on, mix, 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 blend. You know, whenever I try and do videos, I always want to have the image of oils mixing, and it nobody ever quite videos that effectively. I think it would be beautiful. Look at that. Oh my goodness, that is sheer heaven. Just beautiful. So yeah, if you obviously want to buy the cards, there's a link underneath that tells you where to get them from. But also, if you want to use the knowledge base, there's a link through to that too. And goodness me, when you start to smell that and you feel all the knowledge base opening up, all the different shifts in the body and how they move and how they're executing through the physical body, it's really extraordinary. It's a whole new layer to plant medicine. So there we go. That is how to do the blending. Can't wait for you to watch Gerdlo talk about proper blending in a minute. So the safety of marjoram oil. Well, this is an interesting one because I would say there's not really any safety involved. However, there is advisories and best practices. So the first thing to know is maximum dilution would be 3%. Perfectly safe to use on children, for your cats and dogs. Just a very benign oil. However, pregnancy, I would say, not suitable for use in the first 16 weeks of pregnancy. So again, we just watch that. So you're thinking, well, what's left? Well, sex is what's left. So marjoram is what's called an anaphrodisiac. That's a word you don't hear in very much in general use. Aphrodisiac, the opposite of aphrodisiac, is an aphrodisiac. In other words, it puts you off it. So the problem we have then is if we use it continuously for insomnia, you're going to be doing a lot of sleeping, aren't you? And not much else. So we use it in small amounts for small periods of time. So about a week, and then we have a break from it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that it can be really stupefying. So the only other oil that I can say that I really find that with is clary sage, where you just become a bit dopey. So it kind of blunts the edges of your personality and your perception. So again, we would be very careful of using it too much if we were using heavy machinery, if we were using driving car, because you're just going to go a bit like this, aren't you? Now, that doesn't seem to be a problem until you're driving on the motorway, does it? So we be very careful. So whilst maximum dilution is 3%, I would use less. Yeah, so 3% is perfectly safe for like dermal irritants or anything like that. It's not particularly a problem to the mucous membranes, but this stupefying element of knocking the edges off us when we might not be safe in an environment is important. So I would, in those kind of situations, if I got that kind of job, so for example, what I'm seeing in my head now is I used to be a recruitment consultant, and I worked in the commercial division, to be fair, but we had an industrial division that sat next to me, so I know their jobs quite well. Imagine you're a press operator, right? So a press operator has a repetitive job. The second that you switch off, you become in danger, right? But the problem you get with being a press operator is you use the same muscles over and over again. So if we were not careful, we might think, well, marjoram would be perfect for those muscles, because you would be right, that repetitive thing of being in a cold and drafty factory all of the time, over and over and over. Yes, that would be indicated, but we don't want to lose concentration. So in which case we might use something like juniper as an alternative. So just watch best practice. We only use for short periods of time, and we only use in small dilutions. We are very, very careful that we understand what is happening with the person's job and the person's lifestyle, that we do not put them into a position of danger by using a stupefying oil. So now let's go and have a look and see what Gegle has to say about the blending.
And this is my blending video part for video 2 on marjoram. And first of all, we start with the illustration, and the Latin name is Origanum marjorana, and the keyword for this plant on this card is admission. Beautiful plant. Marjoram belongs to the same family, Lamiaceae, where lavender or clary sage or hyssop belongs to. And for me, the plant a little bit looks like oregano. The reason is because it has these small roundish leaves. The difference for me is definitely, whereas oregano has more like waxy, shiny little round leaves, marjoram has more like a little bit chalky, dull, not so vivid, but deep green leaves. So, but once you touch the plant and then you smell the essential oil coming from the leaves, for example, you immediately know the difference. Marjoram is really sweet, that's why, hence, it's called sweet marjoram. Now, if I'm looking at marjoram as a Hungarian, it is special to me, because we have it in our culture, in our culinary culture. We use marjoram extensively in many different dishes. For example, we have a sort of like a black pudding, it's a dish, it looks like a sausage, but it's filled with, one type filled with fried blood. I know, I'm a vampire. And also there's another version which is with liver, stuffed with liver and rice and all sorts of good fillings, and lots of marjoram. But marjoram we use for lots of meats and salads and so on. So it is actually a very familiar plant for me. So the smell is also, the aroma is also very familiar to me. So I love it. If I'm looking at the perfumery notes, marjoram is definitely a middle note. And if I wanted to describe the aroma, I would say it's definitely a little bit spicy, definitely sweet spicy, a little bit herbaceous. it's an herb after all, right? Even I could call it slightly medicinal, maybe. Um, Definitely a green note. It's warm because it's sweet, radiant, a little woody undertones maybe, or sometimes people describe it as an aphrodisiac. So if you smell it too much, then you can get a little bit convulsed, just a little bit dizzy because it's too much of the aroma. And how they call it is stupefying if you have it too much, right? So if I wanted to blend with marjoram, it's easy because I think it comes together with many essential oils very easily. First of all, most of the citrus oils you could use marjoram with. They really go hand in hand. Or some of the flowers like lavender or lavandin, or especially Helichrysum immortelle. Great blend, with marjoram. Also Roman chamomile. But interestingly, it goes well with eucalyptuses, many eucalyptuses, actually. Or also with rosemary being another herb. Or it's an interesting combination with peppermint or basil. But some of the woodies, like Atlas cedarwood or sandalwood, try it. Very interesting combination. Or Scots pine or cypress, or some of the spices marjoram being a little bit spicy blend as well. Try it with black pepper or nutmeg. But it can also go well with tea tree. Well, mostly I would use it in therapeutic blends because tea tree and marjoram become very medicinal for me. But there's also one interesting combination with lemongrass. So in general, if I would describe marjoram, it is a calming and warming oil, and definitely a relaxing oil. So if you got some appetite, so to say, to blend with marjoram, then come and join us in the Recipe Hub. We have lots of great recipes, also for physical and also for mental and spiritual, and all sorts of other blends that we came up with for you with Liz. So if you want to come, join us, and then you find many other essential oil recipes in our Recipe Hub. And until that, and my next video, I always say, happy blending, folks. See you next time.
Well, hopefully you found that helpful. And between you and I, my battery is about to die on my phone. So I'm going to go through my recipes very, very quickly for you. In the Recipe Hub this month, I have put a recipe in for insomnia using marjoram, for depression, for rheumatism, a blend for a bullied child, home working stress, because I have a self-isolating child and I'm trying to do my job as well. Both of us are muddling through very well, but it is taking some work. One for migraine, very, very helpful blend for migraine, and one for chest infection. So if you are interested in the Recipe Hub, remember the link to find out more about that is below. It's a monthly subscription of £5.95 a month, $99 a month. And there are around about 350 videos in there now of recipes that you can do. Tongue of the Trees cards, if you would like to purchase them, you can get them from Fragrant Earth or from Amazon, my Amazon store now. I just put in Tongue of the Trees and you'll be able to get them in the UK on Amazon. If you're in the US, there is a link below to get them from Jade Shoots from the School of Aromatic Medicine, if you're quick enough, because she is selling them like hot cakes. Over the next few weeks, we will also be selling them in Australia and in India. if you are in a different country and you would still like to buy them, please contact Fragrant Earth, who do international shipping right across the globe. If you want to know more about the knowledge base that goes with this bit down the bottom with the different archetypes, the traditional Chinese medicine, the Ayurvedic and the medical astrology, there's a link to the knowledge base, which is a digital hub. You can obviously use that without the cards if you want to, and that is available immediately too. So for the meantime, I'm going to say thank you so much for staying with me, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week, where we'll look at another essential oil. For now, this is what is marjoram essential oil good for?